GE, it is February 9th,
GM.
2024. Lots to talk about
Heat
today.
Zone.
I'm here for 2 hours. 2 hours. So, people are always saying, hey, I have a question about the OTC. Right here. Right here, baby. I'm your guy. You know what I mean? I'm ready to talk to you about everything about it. If you're interested. And we'll get after it. You know what I mean? Start running down the list. Talk about some things that I was working on. If there's anything else on your mind that's not OTC, I have thoughts. But there's a lot of people saying a lot of thoughts already on stuff. But if you did, you heard of this, Russia thing, or heard about Russia though, or yeah, that's what I thought. It is Friday. Thank you for IMO. Thank you.
IMO.
A couple years ago, I made the sound. I didn't say I did. I just said, have you heard about this Russia thing? Is that the guy there, or is that the guy there, or? Is that a guy in that country, or? GM, that's really lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Phil Army. Well, let's get into it. I've got a couple things. How would I know? I don't know him. Well, here's the thing. I don't know him. And I've never met him. So it would be very difficult for me to like him. And obviously, like, I'm on Twitch, so I'm like really, really young and hip. So he probably wouldn't have the amount of riz that I would like. He wouldn't have the amount of riz that I would like. He wouldn't have the amount of riz.
Sure.
That I certainly have those, Tigress. I certainly have those. I tried to lose those hips on Ozempic. Oh my God. See, Jonah Hill turned into a scarecrow. I said, let's get a little bit of that, Didn't go very well. Didn't go well at all. Oh, yeah. Oh, now it's not. Stay out of the shot. There we go. Okay. A couple things. First and foremost, if you don't know me, you should. Because I own the site OTCmethod.com. And OTCmethod, let's talk about that. I'll answer your question. It can't be reached because this Chrome, ever since I updated it, won't let me type in URLs directly. But then when I do it through Google, it works super fast. So I don't know what it is. I've cleared cookies. I've reset the router. I don't give a shit anymore. What I'm saying is I own this website, OTCmethod.com. It's been number one for over 5 years now when it comes to being a learning platform for over-the-counter trading. I also do my trades there and explain what I'm working on, and would describe it as a great place, even if you're very experienced, a great place to get a second set of eyes on the market, and a really great place if you're new to the game. So that's my plug. Let's get into what happened this week. First of all, I don't think anyone is able to, and then I'll answer your question, Big Joe Mom. It's better than your last question. Better than your last question. I'll tell you that. There, something happened this week that I would say, I I don't think anyone can fully appreciate the amount of damage this did this week. And I'm not talking damage from people who were looking for, like, over the last few months, looking forward to seeing what it might do. I'm talking historical damage from people, a lot of whom felt that this was their last shot and held this for many years. And the amount of money that our peers, well, we'll get into that. The amount of money that our peers um, are out now, uh, and what looks to hopefully not, but potentially be for a very, very long time. It's hard to fully quantify, and you felt the ripples of it through everything that anyone tried to trade this week. It was absolutely brutal, just brutal. And so I was really trying to set my expectations low after this happened because this was disastrous. And you know, people can they are, but yes, they are. But I think they might already happen, Drewer. There's one I'm working on, that RSCI, that I think may be one of those. We'll find out. Um, and I'm so sorry it happened. To point fingers at whoever and whoever and whoever, it's not worth it. But I need you to know that, like, you'll have to really get your expectations under control over the next little while. It's going to take a brand new thing, a big thing, to make a difference. Because a lot of our peers got just destroyed here. It's very, very unfortunate. The other important thing before before we get into the lists is, so there's a thing out there. Um, can I just see now? Just part of my face will be dark, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty good. There's a thing out there, and years ago, a couple years ago, I described it as jokingly, float wars. Float wars. And so I'd like to kind of give you the historical context on float wars and what it all means. And um but here's what happened. So if you came up, because, and the reason I'm telling this story is because I think there's a lot of confusion about what floats mean to stocks on the OTC, and the connotation, or whatever it means, the stereotype around certain things with certain floats, and how it's all kind of uh wrong. And so I'm going to tell you how it's wrong, and then I'm going to explain to you, and this isn't me saying people should buy different things, because people will always buy what they want to buy. That's a fact. Okay? But hear me out. And I'll use Segi as a good example of this. Prior to COVID-19, which was a thing that gave me the science that then covered my body in psoriasis. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I know. Um, there were stocks on this market that had not moved in a decade. And the reason that they hadn't moved in a decade was because there was not the retail liquidity to support a move on it. And those stocks usually, and I had an old picture I took from like 2016 of my watch list. It was on a post-it note, and it was all Segi, Ember, WDLF, like all these old, trips, that made great moves during COVID. Um, and the natural progression for an OTC trader at the time, pre-COVID, was you would dick around with this stuff for a while and finally realize that there was not enough liquidity to support it, and you would move up the ladder in terms of your tastes when it came to price per share, and you'd finally begin to understand liquidity in terms of dollar volume, as where if a stock has a lot of dollar volume, it is liquid because you can move your money in and out, which is the bedrock of the concern for people when they're getting into uh, float wars post COVID. Right, the bedrock of the concern is that a low floater you get bagged, and that on a dub or a trip and stuff you don't get bagged. You could just wait forever or whatever, right? And there's some truth to that, but coming up pre-COVID, you would do these. You'd fart around with Ember and get a flip here and there. Wait for Sheep Wolf to alert it. That was a guy, or Monster Money Mover, Big Ernie to alert it. And then either make your flip or not, and that would be it. And then over time, you would move your way up the liquidity scale, which usually meant moving your way up the price per share scale. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, it brought a lot of brand new people to the market, all with that original taste that pre-COVID traders had. And because of the critical mass, they were able to finally move these things. And so the people who were already here were like, holy shit. Well, this couldn't last. This couldn't continue. Nope. No way it'd get past dub 25. I've been watching this for a decade. This does not get past dub 25, biatch. And then they just kept going and going and going and going. And they were great runs. And because of that, those runs, because of that, those runs changed the taste forever. You know what I mean? It changed what retail felt was good forever. And a lot of the holdovers that made it through to the other side were people that made a lot of money on these and are now very keen on bringing them back. You know what I'm saying? And that's great. There's no problem with that. Brian knows. Hello, Brian. And so for people who were here prior to COVID, like these things, like, to their taste, still don't really suit their taste because they don't necessarily understand even now how they continue. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes people will look at that as hate. You know what I mean? And there are haters out there. I'm not one. I've been in the game with this stuff. But they look at it as hate. And it's just, it's like love languages or Mars and Venus or being from up the block and down the block. Because I'm young and hip. It's like being up and down the block. Oof. And so not understanding those things is something, it's just different. And now we're in a situation where a lot of the trips, I don't know her. So thank you. What was that? Jenny? No, I don't know a Jenny. I don't know a Jenny, hon. So now, like a lot of those things that are hot again or being tried again are this type of flavor because the taste changed, and that's cool too. But where I would caution people is like saying something like Arth, which no one would even sniff at when I was trying it, or FLCX. When I tried FLCX sub dollar, uh, no one would even sniff at this because it didn't suit the taste. And their immediate reaction, well, these low floats are all bags. You know what I mean? Which is equally as ignorant as my saying all these big fat trips are bags. It's completely missing the point, because the point is not what the float is. The point is only, um, whether or not it's got a good catalyst and whether or not, it could get liquid. And, you know, and so when people are saying, well, and they're feeling judged or angry or something, that people don't understand what they like about things, and that's really wrong, because it's like asking, someone from the Great Depression, like, why they save picture frames, or you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how they were raised. And so I just thought it was an interesting story for people who are getting into this, I think, toxic discussion about what uh you know floats do and whatever. GBAT was a good example. Yeah, it took a bit of time, but I was there 1 to 9, and it was a great trade, and there's a lot of them. So it's okay to open your mind, but the ultimate thing is that you cannot allow people to just pump based on flow, because that's the laziness and that's the shit that bags you. And I used to be in a chat with some top names that are gone now. And they would just roll in with low floaters that they've loaded. I didn't know anything. And alert them to us, and we'd slap them off the ass for 200% or whatever, and they would just fucking disappear. Like, it was awful. And I learned in time that, like, you need a reason for something to move. You need because the concern, whether it's a low float or a high float or whatever, is whether or not they're going to come back if you take it a bit high. That's the ultimate concern. And if there's a reason why it's better today than it was yesterday, then, you have a higher probability of people coming back. But, it's just a weird dynamic that's going on there, and I thought I would use this platform anyways to explain the mindset of someone who didn't always understand those runs, and why they may not necessarily be attracted to them. It's not from a place of, it's completely different languages, completely different languages, you know? So, anyways, and so, but right now, the heat, and this isn't a plea to try different things, because people are gonna buy what they wanna buy. The heat is with, in the dollar volume, it's showing up on dubs and trips and stuff like that. All right, no problem. But, if you see an opportunity out there, don't immediately write it off as a guaranteed bag because it's got a lower float or a higher price. Because there are tons of these moving, tons of them moving big with big dollar volume. Well, you see, I mean, I know you're being funny there. But, like, I mean, that is a real attitude that's out there. And my whole existence is trying to get people, well, then you're out of here. If that's not a joke, you're out the door. But I do feel your pain, because you want to originate, you want to find a new opportunity, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes it feels like, but that's a liquidity issue in this market right now. That's a liquidity issue in this market, and it's enough to bring you to tears when you see, uh, like, what the big board is doing. It's enough to just break your heart. It really is. It's very tough. Me too, pal. I'll be like, "Well, nobody's gonna wanna miss this," and I'm, like, the only guy that owns it, which is such an OTC feeling. So anyways, that's just the story and the background, and why, float wars, or the belief that something is a lower float or a lower price is instantly a bag, is equally as ignorant as me saying, well, this has, 2 billion floating, so it's a bag. It's not fair to what the catalyst is, and it's not fair to the realities of liquidity and catalyst and everything like that. And there's giant moves to show for it. I mean, just shocking move to show for the fact that that's not the case. That's a month, 1 to 9, 1 to 10. So that's that. Anyways, I just thought you'd be interested in the history. I know, especially for a lot of people that came up kind of in COVID, which is great. Um, it's just a different history. Like these things, it would be a 1-2 day pop on some trip, and the odd one would run, but the probability of you're actually making a monster move on one of them was so low. You know what I mean? So it's a different spirit. Let's get into that question, and then we'll get into some tickers. What do you say? If you got a ticker, drop it in. Hit me. When you have a setup that you like a lot, but there isn't any volume in it, trading less than $5,000 a day, what would be your max starter trade? That's the question. So I'm going to explain sizing to you in terms of probabilities. Okay, and I'm going to draw it here. I'm going to draw it on this. At the end of the day, when you buy a stock, even if the catalyst is great, the setup is great, everything looks so great, it doesn't often work out. It doesn't always work out, and there's something to be said for the fact that, even if you think it's great, no one else thinks it's great, and on and on and on. And so I liken it to like pulling out, what color is this? God bless. Not that color's a problem. Okay. I liken it to like pulling bag. You know what I mean? No. Come on.
Bag.
Pulling marbles out of a bag. These are all stocks, and these are all opportunities for you. These are all opportunities. Okay? And each time, most of them do nothing. Most of these marbles do absolutely nothing. They just do, plus 5%, -5. Thank you for joining me. I am Redelso. Thank you for joining me. So most of them do nothing. The odd one goes decently green, and the odd one goes decently red. And then the odd one is a complete snake eyes, complete destruction. And the odd one is an absolute moonshot. So if I'm playing this game and I'm adjusting my size all the time, if I hit that ultimate moonshot and I've sized down because I don't like the float or whatever, then I've missed out on an opportunity that I could have been waiting months for. If I size up heavy because this is a slam dunk, everyone loves this, and I hit the snake eyes, I've just effed my whole account. So, what is the remedy for this? Well, the remedy for this would be to use the same amount of size every single time, no matter what. And that amount of size doesn't need to be your whole account. I like to, for me as a general rule, I would like to use, 20% of my available cash or margin excess per play. So I don't skew the probability to a place where I get fried or I miss out on the biggest trade of my life. Now there's rules that you have to play by, obviously, especially in the OTC. I like to hear that. Especially on the OTC, there's rules to why you would buy something. And the general rule for me would be, if it's very, relatively low on the float and, bid support is, not low, but low liquidity, and bid support is very limited, and you're concerned about whether or not anyone will come back, then you have to answer the question, why would I buy it today versus yesterday or the day before, the month before, the year before, when it never had any volume? you can't answer that question, then there's no reason to be buying it. So that's one way you can avoid the problem. The second way you can avoid the problem is by using the daily chart and identifying, and I call it cutting candles, um, identifying, what is a place where it has lived in the past where I could try and take it. If it's slow, you have the luxury of taking the time to bid for it, where I could pick it up. And so you could use Zevo for an example. When it was just getting started, I could put it on the daily and say, hey, you know what? It kind of lived between, this isn't a great example because this was so volatile as a D-lister. Um, pull one up. Let's just pull up a boring one. Right? So on this one, you could say, okay, this isn't terribly liquid. It's not moving really at all, but and it, there's not really necessarily a way out, but it's lived here for most of the year now, around 2-ish. And I could just say, hey, if I pick it up around 2-ish, then at least I know that there would be a bid for me if I had to pull the chute. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the way that you could go about it, is say, yeah, and it lived around here, and that's what I could do when if I want to pull the chute. But the big thing obviously is with regard to size probabilities. Because I'll tell you what, at my years doing this, uh the ones that I least expected to make a monster move made the biggest moves. The one that I thought were guarantees didn't move at all, and the rest of them didn't do shit. And so you damage yourself to the downside or the upside, um, if you're hypersizing on some and undersizing on others. And that size needs to be measured by, will it destroy your life if you pick it up? You know what I mean? Like if a $2,000 loss is going to make it you unable to meet your commitments in life, then that's too much money. For some people, that's 20,000. For others, it's 2,000, whatever it is. But then the other thing you have to consider is if it does have no volume and you're going to be all the volume, which sometimes you got to be to get ahead of the game, then you open up that daily chart and make gosh darn sure that at some point over the last year, people have at least come up for it at that level at some point. You know what I mean? Because if they haven't, with whatever you're trying to buy, if you're trying to take it off the ask or whatever, if they haven't, you're never getting out. The probability of your getting out is very, very low. And I forget what this is called, that sizing philosophy. I think it's the gambler's fallacy or something. But I have done better overall ever since looking at it from that perspective. So hopefully that answers your question. Anyways. NVTA. So, um, yeah, no problem. NVTA. So here's the thing. Do I like it? I don't like anything. But this NVTA is a company that fell off the big board. And it's getting to a point which um over the last couple of days, it's come down from 38 cents. And that's when there was already blood in the water. 38 cents down to 8.018. And I remember when Civ B, Q, and all those other and those failed banks, they fell off the big board, just fell right out of the stars. Fell right out of the stars, and they leveled off for a couple days. And then, the short covering started, and the bounce attempt started. And, in that few days, it, went from 9 cents, like, back to, it was just crazy, the move that it made. There it was there, the relief bounce. And it didn't matter to people, really what right from the bottom wick, it was just bonkers. It didn't really matter to people what, was going to happen to the company long term. It didn't really matter, but there was a point of relief where, that delister bounced and had to bounce. And we haven't really seen one. We've seen a few delisters come down, but not to that kind of juicy price of around 1 cent. And certainly not in a terribly liquid way. Um and so I thought, I turned my nose up at those banks because I was like, well, have you read the nose? And people didn't care. They didn't care. And so now I'm looking at this thing pulling $400,000 a day, which is certainly liquid by OTC standards, and putting in a bottom there at 17, 18, and going, gosh, I should at least find out. And in terms of risk, because it is liquid enough, um, doing 400 grand a day, it would be easy for me to just say, hey, you got to stay above 175 or I got to go. That would be easy to do. And even that's a big ask on the OTC right now. So I thought, hey, I'm going to give it a rip and, you know, put it out there. There's a chance they file for bankruptcy. But it looks like that's priced in. And then there's also a chance that they decide not to file for bankruptcy. Then what happens? I wonder. What if they didn't? So that was the thought process on it, and that's why I decided to go for it. Will it be a great run? I have no idea. If I had an idea, like if I had, I'd be on an island. If I knew what was going to happen to anything, I would either be lying or I would be on an island with scientists. Have you heard this one? Scientists making clones of my body and then keeping them in like water, like gel water. They would keep my body in gel water, and then what would happen is that when my existing body began to die, they would just take my brain. I'd be so rich, is what I'm saying. I'd take my brain out, and they would put it into this replacement body that's in the gel water. Okay, and then I would just move to that. So that's what I would be doing if I knew what was going to happen on any stock. But what I can know is when I must absolutely leave. Gel water.
Hey, Pat, do you see it?
Uh, but what I can do is draw a line and say, stay above this line and I'm here, go below this line, I got to go. But that's the thesis. That's the thesis. So that's that. Lots of tickers on the not really moving. Not really moving. I'll walk you through a few that I was working on. NNAX was one I liked, and NNAX was purely because of the setup. I and this is an example of what they call like a dilution play. And if you don't know what a dilution play is, then I'm here to tell you. I'm your guy. So here's a dilution play. A dilution play is when something comes down, it floats down to a level that is very, very, very low in relation to the amount of shares that have been diluted. So in the case of NNAX here, we can see that, this was being pulled down to trips, and you can see it on the top left of my screen up there, way up top, right up here. You can see here that the amount of volume that was bringing it down was extremely limited. You know, 20 mil here, whatever here, and at these prices, that would be, you know, 18 grand, 19 grand, whatever. And so the way I set up a dilution play is I'll put a downward downward dog on the downtrend, and then I don't want that. And then I'll look for that moment when it crawls out of it, and then put a line underneath where it's crawling out to see if it's actually created a bottom. And then at that point, if it perks up off that line, then I could maybe see if I could find the intersection between when the price is so low and the dilution is not slowed necessarily or stopped. It's a dilution play, but that intersection between where the price is so low and the rate of dilution is not enough to stop retail from bouncing it hard. And back in the day, we used to squeeze the shit out of stuff. That was our trip. We used to squeeze the shit out of stuff that would, slowly just float down to zero, and then we'd run them out on the day. Whatever they had outstanding, prepared to dilute for that day, people would start pushing for the finish line and see if they could run out whoever the seller is, and absolutely squeezed it. And there were classics over the what's that trucking play that I hate? TLSS. That is a bag. TLSS was a great example of this pre-COVID, obviously. TLSS had floated down to a point with their dilution, and it looks like that no shares brought it down, but there were shares that brought it down. Um, where it got to a point that it finally was just something that could no longer be ignored as far as being too low and needing to get bounced. And the move on it, while it seems small in the big picture, was just stunning, right? And this was just at the start of COVID, and we used to do these all the time. It sure can now. And so when I looked at NNAX, I was saying, okay, you've got a billion AS, which is really not too bad by today's standards. If you would consider that fully diluted, it would be like 1/5 of Spoozy. And all of a sudden, a massive spike in liquidity, which I have no idea where it came from. It was happening before I got into it. And then I thought, okay, I should at least investigate because it's fitting that pattern of a dilution play. What's the scoop? And it's done basically nothing, and they've been diluting the entire time. But with that being said, it's also maintaining new levels that it was not in the days prior. And so, I felt that based on that, it was something that I really wanted to investigate, because there's that point where the rate of dilution to the price becomes one that no longer affects buyers from that level negatively, and sometimes it gets a push. So that was the idea on NNAX. The bonus kicker would have been, hey, now this volume is hit, and oh, by the way, they were actually telling their friends and family that there was a reverse merger happening here. And there was your sign, right? So that was the idea. It's still maintaining the levels. They are absolutely diluting, but now the question becomes: are they really willing to? Because this isn't up to date. This is a month old, and they've been selling all that entire month. But then the question becomes: are they really, really willing to blow their entire stack of authorized shares uh, down here? And what happens if whoever is that seller gets exhausted? Because the one thing about NNAX that's different from, like, and that's a whole other topic, like that Viper with these lying transfer agents. Like these guys, that AS raise, it turned out happened a long time ago, and these guys were updating that AS every single day, not showing the AS raise that happened, and only once people noticed did they update it on OTC markets. And this is not the first time that these TAs have been on some bullshit. That's a whole other topic. These transfer agents are on notice. So anyway, so now the question is, with only 1 billion AS, if they keep the pressure on, and you can see I set an anchor from the 13th of November where the selling really got heavy to today. And once it exceeds it, then what's the scoop? Will it be a big runner? I don't know. But the idea is one based on, a dilution play, which most big runs are. It was a thing that went to zero, and then to our eyes, it's like a brand new thing, right? So that's the thought process there on NNAX. And there's a lot of confusion floating around, excuse me, um, about why it's being about why it was of interest to people, and that's why it was of interest to people. And so who knows what'll happen, but uh it's a tougher sell now. And this is what I'm talking about, the love languages of OTC past versus present is, something like that. Like, we had to put these together with low price securities, because there was not a lot of energy for low price securities, in contrast to what today. So we'd have to consider all these things. And one of the greatest ones of all was Car Smart, if you recall. Where my what's that guy? Gorilla Stock? Where's Gorilla at? Car Smart was an excellent example of something. Was it in 17? Was it the 7? No, this was the Bitcoin pump. This was the dilution play pump. And then yeah. Car Smart was a great example of a dilution play. They had one good run, but then you can see it. There came this tipping point where it started to float out of the hole and became a real bonkers trade. And so you got to watch for that type of setup, and that was my thought process on NNAX anyway. That's that. NHMD I tried to this week. My idea was, I thought, okay, this guy, like, I don't like that. Like, if you think that I like anything about this setup, you're drinking your bath water. You're drinking your bath water, baby. I don't like anything about this setup at all. I hate it. But I'm going, okay, they made this move the other day, or in the fall, and now it's kind of crawling out of the hole, and I don't know how passionate they truly are for it. But um if it could at least stay above 15, it could be okay. And it started getting okay, and it made a 25% move, which is garbage. And then it lost the first stop, and then lost the 15. So it was a round trip to nowhere. And I feel that there's a lot of these right now, a lot of these chubbos, that, people are trying to do something with, but the amount of time it takes to get ahead, which is why there's a few out there that are a bit fresher, or there's something ahead coming that I was interested in. This PAOG, for sure I was. And the price action has been poor so far. They had the DD on this Salud Esmeralda thing, which was intriguing. And then there's been no information on as to whether or not they closed it. There's been some chatter about people saying that they're hearing news could be coming or something like that. But the risk is that we don't know what that news is. We don't necessarily know if that news is them closing the merger with Salud Esmeralda. We see that they put an LOI out in November, but we've not heard if that news will be about Salud Esmeralda, or if it will be, blunts or whatever they were doing, smoking blunts or whatever they were doing before. So the risk is, you know, like, above this line for sure, that's cool. But the risk is that you wake up one morning on something that's up from trips, and the news comes out that people were expecting or whatever, and that news is not closing the merger with Salud Esmeralda, and then you're going right back. You know what I mean? And so I found it very tough to be peaceful here as a result of the fact that you know, it's already in a way kind of there's already a bunch of downside risk with a lot of people waiting for something that if it doesn't happen, if you recall, if it doesn't happen, oh man. But here's the best part about the truck stop is they were waiting for floating trains. A floating train? And this guy and then this guy, he takes a picture of, oh, Kamala Harris, like, from a mile away at the believe me, I've been got. He takes a picture of Kamala Harris from, like, a mile away and is and people are like, "Oh, Kamala Harris, IMO," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's like on max zoom on his iPhone." But that truck stop was some bullshit, and then they showed the picture of that truck stop on Google Maps, and it was so bad. So anyways, that's the risk. And you know what's so funny is, I mean, that is the most OTC stuff. Like, what? Oh my goodness. I mean, it's forever thus in this market. So, anyways, I love the idea of POAG, and if they did come up with a merger closure of the Salute Esmeralda, that's a brand new value proposition, which is great. But the risk is like if I would assume that anyone you have to laugh, and you know what? The only thing that has kept me alive in this market is the jokes. You know what I mean? Like, because if you can't laugh, even when something is good, if you can't make fun of it a bit, chances are, because chances are no matter how good it is, it's not gonna be what you hoped it would be. You know what I mean? And so when I make fun of stuff, like, it's the way I can, like, separate myself from the disappointment that's, probably coming, and then people would take it, "Can you believe what he said about," and over the years, I've had guys like, "Look at this joke you made. This is a serious investment, and how dare you?" And it's like, "Bro, you'll see. You'll see." So, that's the scoop there, but certainly above 17, it would be pretty good. Gumper, I call it Gumper. I guess they had a small share reduction. Gumper is me. I'll tell you what. Um, there would not really be a circumstance in which Gumper is to my taste. But, I'm trying to get in the game that's being played right now. And so when I see something, kind of coming off the bottom with good volume, like pulling 500,000,000, I'll tell you about that's a very interesting story, Uriana. Is that how I say it? Is it Arena? Arena. Irina? Maybe this person only speaks in tickers. So to me, something that is to the current taste right now, pulling, 500,000,000 shares in 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, I got to try. So I took some fours. It's been pretty good. And then it got to this point where it got rejected at this trip 9, which is really the key. You could see it, the key level for this thing to kind of crawl out of the hole. Got rejected at it, and now it's just sitting here between this trip 9 and trip 7, and you have to determine whether or not you want to sit there or not. Like, it was a good entry, it was a good idea, not a bad move. But with that being said, for me, I feel like I would rather just pick it back up on the oscillator cross because people get a lot of worry. 30 minutes, what I use. People get very concerned, like, what if I miss it? Have you seen how this moves? Okay. You're not chasing, what do you chase? You're not chasing a cheetah here. If it's going to continue, you pay up one ticket, it's a big move. It wouldn't really matter. What? No, I know that. I was trying to get your name. I didn't want to say it wrong. I heard it. I got the spirit of what you were doing there. So, anyways, that's Gumper. So not a lot of fun. I find these moves, like, I don't feel, like when I'm in these, I'm really getting ahead at a rate that makes my life a lot better. But it's what's going on right now, and I've got to get with the program. RSCI is one that I'm in. I'm gonna do what I'm kind of is on my mind, Arena, and then I'm gonna get into those. So keep banking them in, and I'm gonna get after them. RSCI. So this is a very interesting story. This is a setup that has been this biotech for a bit of time. They pulled a decent size split in 2018, and have been working to become a real company for quite some time. 1.6 mil floating, and decent in terms of spread, and liquidity's okay. But they put out some news that they are going to begin clinical trials on this study about this nicotine strip, and this is using a chemical called cytosine, which actually does work for smoking cessation and is legal in most countries except the United States. Okay, GGSM, you got it, except the United States. And so I thought it was interesting that they're back testing this level. And my idea the other day was to pick it up on this break here, which I did. And now I'm really challenging it to stay above zero point 0.3 and see, because from the perspective of resistance, there is none. All of this is split out. Not a ton of volume down low, legitimate company that's getting into something that's becoming more and more the topic now, with people wanting to get rid of vapes and pods and pouches and whatnot. And so it is very topical. And I saw it getting a bunch of volume before I even picked it up. And now you could see it's much more liquid than it ever was for years and years and years. And so, kind of as long as it's above this 3-ish, I'd like to be there to investigate. And that's like on a lot of them, the FLCX and all those different ones, like, you don't see that moment to moment action all the time. So you look at it quick and say, well, no one's just slapped a 10 million share wall in the last 10 minutes. So it's not any good. But, actually sticking with these and working them can be massively lucrative. On the flip side, sometimes they don't move, but isn't that everything, I suppose? You know what I mean? So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. Also, Fast Base, which right now has, I'm giving the name Fart Base. But Fart Base, if you're saying, why are you calling it Fart Base? I say, don't worry about it. Get out of here. I say it's Fart Base.
Added to my stash.
Is that not the baggiest comment? Like, this, all right, added to my stash.
Added to my stash.
Like, if you can just roll in and add to your stash on something that, like, is deep red, there's a chance that no one really wants it that bad. Like, when something's hot, it's like you, like, knock over your coffee trying to get it. You know what I mean? So I don't really know about that, but I made it
to my stash
because I felt like it was very important. I also made this because, before I get to those tickers, there was a period of time where you had to respect GVSI. And if you had any comment about GVSI, you had to, what did you have to, you had to caveat it with this. Oh, it's gone. That's too bad. Oh, no, here it is.
I'm excited for the liquidity GVSI could provide and very happy for long-term holders. They definitely held it on purpose and are now being rewarded for the patience. This is
You had
great
to
for the
say that every
OTC.
time. You had to say that every single time you said anything about GVSI because they'd be on you like a fog. Thank you, George. George, I just want to say thank you for your jokes and thank you for your tweets. Thank you. Thank you very
I am
much.
excited for the liquidity GVSI could provide and very happy for long-term holders. They definitely held it on purpose and are now being rewarded for the patience. This
I
is
held it
great
on
for the
purpose.
OTC.
Excuse me. What are we doing? Yes. Fartbase. So Fartbase has a merger coming up. And there was some maniac that was buying interestingly enough, I woke up and I said, "Well, what is this person doing buying Fartbase?" You know what I mean? Um And it turned out that this company is in the process of putting together a reverse merger that's going to be happening any day. We don't know what the company will be. So the majority of the buyers are, you could see them here around like 8 or 9. So it's not as high up as you think. And, outside of that, there's a like, holy shit. Like if it's a decent now you're running into the same issue that you run into on other stuff. Like if he rolls out and the merger is weed, it's not going to go very well. But the anticipation to the lead up of the merger certainly could be a good move. And then if it is a good merger on this setup, I mean, oh my God. So I'm very interested in that. By the way, like I'm talking about this, I can't even own this. It's a cease trade for me where I live. I just am excited about what it could do. Like what a psycho, right? Like what type of a pumper is that? So that's that. That's kind of a lot that's going on. IGPK obviously. So IGPK had a big dip, and part of the reason that it did is that there's been a seller in this selling like all week, nonstop selling, and which is fine. You know what I mean? The sellers sell and they do what they do. Um, Judge, you say 35%. But it sounds like you're playing 4G chess, 4D chess, George. Ah, I see what you did here. This is 4D chess.
I'm excited for the liquidity GVSI could provide and very happy for long-term holders. They definitely held it on purpose and are now being rewarded for the patience. This is great for the OTC.
Yes. So the thing here is like they've got the DD about the Chinese e-commerce thing, which is a big ass company, by the way. And if that is truly the company that's coming in, and a lot of signs point to it being that, then this is a very very big run, and could do a lot more than this, a lot more than this. Where I have stress, and maybe that would be the difference between someone who makes a massive trade on this and someone who makes not as massive of a trade on that. Okay, so it's not. I'm not saying that my attitude is correct, but I remember on YCRM, when I felt that the merger might not go through, I drew a line here because the guy was getting really quiet all of a sudden. I drew this line and I said, if they go below it, I don't want to risk having this merger fall through. Little did we know that someone was front loading the ticker it was gonna move to, which was so rude. And I said, you know what, below this line, I'm concerned that maybe it won't go through. And and my decision, and others said, well, you know what, then you're a big wuss. And I turned out to be right this time. Doesn't mean that I would have been right guaranteed. And so in the case of IGPK, like I love what it could be. I'm stressed about the fact that we don't have anything official from that company with regard to what the if they're definitely merging into them. And so because of that, like I've chosen to use the 30-minute oscillator instead. And when the selling gets particularly aggressive, which it has over the course of the week, my feeling was I'd rather not be there just in case. And obviously, the people with the stones, they say, to pick it up have had a great bounce so far, and now you're rolling into 30-minute oscillator cross. You could use MACD as well, 30-minute oscillator cross. So maybe it was a very smart dip grab. Time will tell. But that was kind of my thought process. I was like, okay, it's not for sure. It's there's a lot there, but it's not for sure. So there's the thought. There's the thought. People got, and then we'll get into your tickers. People thought they got a kick out of that picture of me when I was working at Subway at 18 years old. So I thought I'd pull it out. I didn't know people would get such a kick. So there I was. 18. Jeez Louise. It didn't feel that long ago, but that picture looks like prehistoric. Feels like yesterday. Hey? God. So there it was. I remember that. I hated it. I hated it so much. So let's get into these tickers. VGLS had a change of control. What did I liked Subway Club, which was the ham, turkey, and bacon. And then I liked the sub sauce. And then I ended up loving that Southwest sauce. That's the top sauce at Subway. And that's still when we cut them in the U. Remember that? Like now they slice the bread in half and fold it open, put the sub. But we used to cut it in a U, remember, and then pull the middle out. And the reason they stopped doing that was because they were using more toppings that way. And people were getting more. So they switched to the folding it in half because they were able to scientifically prove they were able to use like 20% less toppings. So anyways, VGLS had a change of control to a guy. And this guy is a guy that is a one of those. There was this brand of trader that came out not last fall, but the fall before. And they were this brand of trader that believed in like there was like this massive shorty conspiracy with Finger and a MLT MMTLP, GTII, and Vocal, or CRTD at the time. And this guy seems to be very involved in that that world. That there was this world of people that were very involved in squeezing the Kramer.
Controlled by the company, I'll give you first. They're not necessarily they're all great, but they're not necessarily the most exciting one. The most exciting one.
And interestingly, all of those theories led to bags. Like all of those things are bags now. They tried RNVA as well. Yeah, they're all bags now. And RNVA. So I guess this guy's now the CEO of this stock, which is like really bad in terms of setup. Like 20 billion floating. it is against the corporate policy to cut it in that way because it costs the company too much. And they had just switched to using gloves when I started working at. Why weren't they doing that? So VGLS, this is a really bad setup. Like 20 billion floating is a lot. And if that guy has a company to merge in that's very, very valuable and very, very interesting, I'd be keen to hear about it. Because like for me to buy something with no bid, is a very, very tall order. Because if I literally cannot leave. I can't leave if it has no bid. And you can see here that there's no bid. So what would make the most sense to me would be to do a reverse split on this and then roll out your plans. That would make the most sense. And I would feel that this is at extreme risk of getting a reverse split. But if this guy thinks that he's going to move a 20 billion share floater, I mean, stranger things have happened, but he'd have to really say something really exciting. Really exciting. You know what I'm saying? That's that one. Hit me with some more tickers. But like as far as whether, and anything can happen, I suppose. But as far as the question as to whether or not I would like to open a position on this, the answer would be no. No, I wouldn't, because I can't leave. I literally cannot leave unless I unless I put my shares on the ask and pray someone buys them. And then even then it's a lottery because you have hundreds of millions on the ask at trip one. So even if someone's buying a bunch of trip ones, they may not buy mine. So tough one. The other one was GGSM. GGSM is a decent setup for sure. They're on yield, but it's not a big deal. They just put out a quarterly report the other day, so I'm not too worried about that. In terms of Catalyst, it's a little bit it's not terribly exciting. You know, charter boats in Indonesia and stuff like that. But it is kind of on the move again. And as far as setups go, these like low price setups, it's not bad. And they could certainly move it. You could see here that key break. Let's take a look. I don't want that. I don't want it there. Oh. I like to use the candle bodies with these OTCs for key break. That key break was kind of a dub one. You could go for 9, I guess. And so, sure. So, you know, above trip 9, it could be okay. The question is to like whether or not I'm looking to open a position on it. I don't hate anything about it. I just like I'm really trying to find movement right now. And I feel like we're in a place with a lot of things that aren't moving very much and we keep gravitating back to things that, you know, aren't providing the price action we need. There's nothing wrong with this. It could absolutely continue. Challenge it to stay above trip 9. You could do very well. It's been underway since November, so it's good. But, you know, the question for me is like to do, you know, 75% move since November, you know, how, if you're trying to be an active trader or you're trying to really compound gains, you know, where do I go where I could get that big move? And which is why sometimes people get bothered with me. Or, you know, my engagement is garbage because I'm trying to originate something that, you know, could make a big move with a catalyst that's not heard of, you know what I mean? And that's the complaint. And I can see with the ones that you've thrown at me since, it's the exact same complaint. ABQQ, there's nothing you can do here except for be in it and ask it to stay above dub 15 and hope it moves again. I mean, because I could toss you 10 pounds of DD. I could play you this sound. I could play you this sound.
Check out this DD.
You know what I mean? I could play that sound to you,
Check out this
and
DD.
I could say, check out this DD.
Check out this DD.
I could do both. But the problem is it moving? And right now it's not. And there will have to be a point where I say, I got to go if I'm in this, because I need to go somewhere that has upward movement. So really, if you're in this and you're in near this price of 15, and you want to challenge it to stay above 15 and see it if it'll make the turn, great. Alternatively, if you're not in it and you're looking to make open a position in it, you could use a price action oscillator like my KST, not mine, but my custom length measured KST, or just MACD is fine. They're very similar. And say, you know what? Okay, they've consolidated it for a long time. If it were to cross on the daily, I'll pick it back up and see if it's ready for another leg. That's another thought. But, you know, if you're just sitting in this and it starts to flow below dub 15, then you start to have to ask what your time's worth. You know what I mean? And that's really the issue. YCRM has this merger with these guys, and the price action stinks as well. It's not good price action, and the reason it's not good price action is they broke the trust. They broke the trust, and the merger is also a little bit lacking in terms of excitement, being the software or whatever, which is just fluff to your average person. And so, you know, it's fine, I guess. You know, it's not really moving. I mean, I've been in this all year and I've done nothing. So if you'd like it to stay above 7 and be in it, then that's, I guess, your business. It's a free society. But outside of that, like if you're looking for me to say, oh yeah, it'll definitely move or it won't, I don't know. I'll never know. And anyone telling you that they do know is full of shit. So stay above 7 and see if it could do something. Because right now the organic level of action is low. Howe Street. Sometimes, but not. It doesn't happen often enough for it to be a strategy I could use. Have you ever seen an OTC stock post record revenues and profits in a filing and experience a large share price correction? Yes, I have. I've absolutely seen it. It doesn't happen that often, so it's not really a strategy I could rely on. But I have seen it, and it does happen. But the rub, Howe Street, is that these filings aren't audited. They don't have to be audited if they're pink only. So, you know, now it's not the word of a CPA who could be like disbarred for writing down some bullshit. It's the word of someone's lawyer who went, yeah, I see this person wrote what they believe to be true. And so if it comes in this funnel, it may not necessarily be the best move. If it comes in this funnel, then it's kind of a different story. You know? Do you see the theme? Like this is what the PVSP is. This is what I'm talking about as a question. And this is what I was talking about at the start of the stream. It's things have changed, and you know, tastes have changed, and you know, PVSP. The news was, I thought this was strange because they're gonna restructure their cannabis operations and convert about 15 million in debt to a newly formed subsidiary. The restructuring is a prelude to their plan to spin that subsidiary out into a public entity on the OTC QB market. The company is so they're telling you that they have $15 million in debt. And yeah, that's right, House. That's what I'm saying. They're telling you that they have $15 million in debt, and they're telling you that they're going to make a thing that they're going to just shit all over. And that you can sit here and watch them shit on it. You can sit in this and look at them shit on that. That's the news. And I wonder who would let them, like, seeing this, like, and then I'm sitting there with money, and then these guys make a new subsidiary that they said they're gonna shit on. Who's gonna buy that? Is this the one they're gonna shit on? And that, in addition to the setup on 5 billion floating. So right away, like, then I like to do this elevator test. Like, if I gotta sell something, because for an OTC to really move, the story has to be one that would captivate someone who's never traded before. Like, could make them really go, holy crap, I got to get some money. I'll tell you about that. I got to get some money together. This sounds unbelievable. And I often do that test when I'm looking at something, especially if the setup's lacking, which this certainly is. I often do that test. And so, like, if I were to walk into the elevator and be like, listen, they got this, they're going to shit on this thing. Come here. Come here. Sit down. Sit down. They're going to shit on another thing. I don't get it. I never got it. And obviously no one else does. LTNC and Sybil, they have a caveat emptor. The process of getting rid of a caveat emptor is one that is not easy. It takes a lot of work with OTC markets. All of that happens behind the scenes. Rarely, I'll tell you that things coming off of caveat emptor are pretty rare. And it's a thing, it's a process that nobody has any visibility to, and it's up to them and their dealings with OTC markets directly to get rid of the caveat emptor. LTNC, on the other hand, is not a caveat emptor. This is gray, which means that if they were to get their filings up to date, they could once again become pink current. But they have not done any of that. They've not even attempted. And we see here that they filed a 1512G. And this is how you knew it was bullshit, because they filed a 1512G, which meant that they were supposed to file here and become a pink only filer. Correct. They were, so that's what this says. We're switching to pink only filing. And so when they were not filing at all and only pumping with 8Ks, which they have no obligation to release now. There's no reason they should be releasing 8Ks if they're a pink only filer. You know they're pumping, right? Because why would you be releasing 8Ks to the SEC when you're not an SEC filer? So for this to come back to life, you'd have to see a whole load of filings hit OTC markets on the pink only side. And then they could go current and it would come back with unsolicited quotes, but I've not seen any of that at all. I've not seen any of that at all. So that's that. That's those. Hopefully this is answering all your questions. With regard to my question as to whether or not I feel like I'm really getting ahead right now, no. There have been a few good runners here and there. But if you were to play the amount of tickers you would have to buy to get the big runner and stay in the big runner, and then the pace at which things are moving is very, very, very challenging right now. And I'm finding myself with a lot of downtime and a lot of things that are trading sideways for a long, long time. And I'm finding it extremely frustrating. I do love I love this trade in this market so gosh darn much. I mean, I sacrificed everything for it. Who's going to hire me now? I've been out of this game for 5 years, doing something that has like nothing transferable. So it's pretty scary. TKVR. So this is interesting. This was the Zshang, yes. And then they had a news release, a Dashang Media, and it did pretty well for a while, and then it did nothing. And part of the reason for that is that there's really nothing here in terms of yeah. So they're making, here we go, an e-commerce platform that's doing daily sales of 500,000. We don't know what the margin is on that, which is a bit unfortunate. And their distribution business, which is doing decent dollar volume, they're making a bit of money. Daily average revenue is not that high, $3,700. We don't know the margin on the e-commerce, so we don't know how much money that actually is. We see the commission amount, $6 million, which is okay. It's an okay setup, so their market cap's more than they'll probably make on the year. It had a very good move, and now you can see here that there's you can see the difference. That original move, you can see it in the volume. That original move was good. Then it kind of floated down maybe on lower volume, and the selling has increased big time. And from the original move there in August, let's put an anchor on it. You can see here that someone is selling this deep red in relation to what the average is that retail's been holding. So that's either the company or a note holder. And, at this point, the question becomes one of like, does it stop? It could. Oh, how do I manage that? Like, I mean, it could certainly stop, but you could see it's mega volatile right now, and the seller is super aggressive. 56K straight into the bid today. So you're in a downward spiral. I got to pop my ears out. You're in a downward spiral, with seriously increasing amount of selling from the company. And then the question is, what do I do? For me, do I want to open a position in it? I'm not really necessarily sure if this price action is very compelling at all. They had a nice move in November, been selling ever since. You know, not a good one, not really a good one in the elevator. With Chinese things, for the most part, there are exceptions, but with Chinese things, they're a very tough sell to a North American audience. And so you wanted me to open a position on this, I'd be hard pressed to want to. Now, obviously, like I said, that the selling can stop. And if it were to stop, then, okay, how could I prepare for that? Well, probably be a break of this. Yeah, this was the move. This was the last move. Probably be a break of this trend line here. And then I would have to take it and then grin and bear it if whoever this is keeps whacking it low. So it looks very, very, very tough. You have a quick way to calculate the company valuation. I'm wanting to understand how to figure out how much the share price should be. So I'll stop you right there because the share price is whatever people want it to be. And I think that if this market was just all computers doing an automated decision as to what a company should be worth, there would be no point in trading. Why would you trade? There'd be no upside. There would be a split second between when a quarterly report hits and the price goes directly to what it should be, and it would never move again. And that includes the big board. People make moves on things based on a bunch of different factors: passion, energy, floating shares for, that would tell you how volatile it could be, all those different things. So there is no calculation. There's no calculation for that. And um, one of my biggest mistakes over the years, especially early on, was go, well, this is too high. This can't possibly go any higher. I'm not touching it. And then it kept going and going and going and going and going. And, it was based on my belief, well, their revenues are X, and it got me into situations where um, I didn't really, I missed out on some moves. So that's my answer to that. And, that piece of advice, and I heard it, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but um, that piece of advice really stuck with me. And sometimes people will see me take things that they would just say, that's ridiculous to take it up there. And I'll go, you know what? The worst case scenario is it's very high to you. So I just pick it up and I say, stay above 25, and it keeps going. Or if it goes below 25, it's out the door. That's the worst case scenario. You know what I'm saying? Elok had that news. I saw it. They were, they were beginning to work on a smartphone antenna. This made a really good move, if you recall, in the fall, and got sold off. But now they've got this smartphone antenna, and interestingly enough, it's broken this anchor of 15, which is the average from that original pump. You know what I mean? And so for me on this D-Loc, if they really love this, and the setup is one that could really move again, you know, they are a bit of a nasty offender when it comes to split dump split. They've been known to do that. But you can't really worry about that. What you could worry about is if you think this antenna business is serious business and it's getting some legs, it would be to pick it up and challenge it to stay above 15. And if it started losing 15, cut it off, and not because it couldn't continue, but because you have to be smart with your time. You know what I mean? Like there comes a point where, the only reward that you get for holding something low and it moving eventually, the opportunity cost is immense. And the only reward you get is a participation trophy from people on FinTwit and iHub. That's the only reward. Outside of that, you're just in something that your money's done nothing for you for a long, long time. So above 15 could be okay. Who is buying when filings with financials, including record revenues and profits, are released midday and there is a re-rate? It's whoever reads it, House Street. Whoever reads it and is willing to take the leap. That's it. And it doesn't matter. Again, I mean, we've had these questions. Oh yeah, I'll tell you about that. We've had these questions before. Is it institutions? Is it retail? And it doesn't really matter. Because either I am in something that's making my life better, or I am in something that's making my life worse. And you're not going to find out who's buying it until way later anyways, when Form 4s and stuff get released. So So what does it really matter? Yeah, that Erie, I don't know what they're gonna do. They gotta fix their shit. And then they say, "Oh, we're not gonna be New York Seltzer now." Well, what the hell? What are you gonna be then? So annoying. Yeah, Opti, so I guess this Brett Rosen is back and he's got plans for this Opti and is gonna looking to merge an asset in of some sort and everything and is putting out news next week and uh you know I guess we'll see what the plan is. You know, the other day he had some bonkers tweet about should I do an AS raise or a reverse split, which was so weird to me. And then uh so I guess it was based on the vote of people on Twitter and he's saying AS raise, but not to dilute. Right? Which I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, like, because, whether or not he does that down the line doesn't change what's happening today and the move it could make between now and then. Right. And so if he is looking to roll a new asset into this, there is certainly a lot of room. The setup is tough in terms of resistances and people, a lot of old COVID holders in it. Let's see if we can kind of identify where they all exist. So they're pretty much all here, you know what I mean? And through 35, and that's why you saw kind of all that back and forth stress around 35 over the last couple days because you could see that that's really the tough zone. And then past 35, if it can get some legs, it could be okay. You know, I think it's good, and if he's bringing value to something that previously had no value, then that's a win. Um, for me, I'm not in this not because I hate it. It's just because like I felt like I had a lot of things that looked like this and traded like this, and I felt like I was very stressed by it. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was very stressed by the amount of, one tick up, one tick down, mega wall. Someone bought the wall, someone didn't buy the wall. Ba, 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 ba. I was like, fuck, can I do something different? And so the idea here is good. And hopefully we'll see, you know, as far as people are saying, hey, where do you land? Brett or George? Are you on team Brett? I'm not on any team. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really on any team. I don't really care about anything, with regard to the people or whatever. I don't really care. Um, and caring has, and because people were saying I was so skeptical of GVSI because I didn't like George. I didn't think of George. I mean, chances are that on a lot of the tickers that I traded, may be the worst people in the world. And based on the way a lot of them trade, they are the worst people in the world. So I don't really care. But if he's willing to do right by people here, then, and if he really is the only note holder, then if they can chew off all that resistance and get a move here, then it could be very good. Nothing wrong with it at all. Nothing wrong with it at all. Um, sometimes I explain, like, people don't really get that, like for me, something that's like tweeted a lot and all the updates are on Twitter and everything like that. Like I don't find them uh terribly intellectually challenging. Like I love, and I think it's because of where I'm from though. You know what I mean? In the old days, you had to unravel the mystery on the SOS and you spotted this thing on the filing and you researched it and wait, everyone's going to figure that, wait till they see this. And, it was that whisper thing where it started getting traction and, and it would make a big move as a result of that, which is really not the game as much anymore. And so sometimes when I have a bunch of things where I have to find out whatever's happening on Twitter, I get a little bit tired from them, and I want to do something different. And I felt like I had a lot of Twittery things, and and then went for that RSCI instead, which has been good so far, and a couple of other things. So they could do a lot here, absolutely, no question, no doubt about it. And the volume is good, the liquidity is good. It's just heavy, and people start running for the door because like big bids will get hit. But you have to understand how long people been down here catching bid whacks and trips, a long ass time. So it's going to take a lot of work and patience for it to level up again. And if you're up for it, then there could be some value creation for sure. But like it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be like YCRM, which I picked up in trips and even tweeted in trips because I was so confident in the type of setup it was, that I was like, people got to get a load of this, and they got to find out soon because when it goes, it's gone. And um it's a different game with Opti because of all the old holders. Slower game. Get through some advancers, maybe discover something new, something different, something exciting. Excuse me. Well, give me 1 second. I'm here, but just give me a second. No, I very dry. Very dry where I live. You know what I'm saying? There we go. Okay. All right. G. Q.
GE.
That's really nice. I'll tell you the truth. So here's your advancers list. This is everything that moved on the day, that made a move. This is your dollar volume column. $17,000, $1,100, 2,900, 6,200. Take a look at that shit. 3,500. 240 grand into this. We'll take a look. This was interesting. I'm holding this. This is crazy. Like, I'm going to warn you about some crazy shit. And if you're like, I don't even know. Someone was like, well, are you going to let people know? And I'm like, I don't know how. Okay. They have a reverse merger happening right now. They just released the news today about PowerPlate. And PowerPlate is this thing that it's the top brand for these vibrating exercise platforms, which a ton of people have and buy and are big jack. Like it's a good business, these vibrating plates. And then they merged into like the craziest setup I've ever seen, down from like $12. This thing is so thin. Do you think that's a lot of volume, bringing it up and down? Think again, 1,000 shares. And I have no idea. Like, I don't know how to recommend this to you or anyone. But once upon a time, there was something similar called Sexy. That had a setup way fatter than that. 2018, 60 cents to $70. Not saying Kick could do that, but I mean, do I have a little lotto in this? Yes, because there comes a point for people where they just go for it. So it's not a bad merger, but the setup, like it's too thin. Like there's levels to this shit. But do I have a lotto on it? Yes, sirree. Should you buy it? I don't know. But it is a reverse merger, so there's that. Anyways, I just thought it was very interesting. So this is your dollar volume column, and you can see here it's pretty skinny in terms of what's moved. You believe that? So we'll just if you got questions, you got to get after me, man. I'm here to answer your questions, but I'm working through this list right now. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for you. But like I was saying, the truth is, like, as far as uh like being just a retail guy, because even though I've got this OTC method service and everything like that, I'm very much a retail trader. I don't have the inside track on anything companies are doing. I don't get paid to talk about anything, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just not that guy. And when I look at the rate at which things move, and the ability to actually make a good living at this, like I get very scared, because these figures here, like, it's very tough to move any money, any real money, a lot of money on a lot of them, like, and you have to be so precise in terms of what's moving and what's not moving. Because if you pick the wrong one, you're just doing nothing. And then if you wait, you're just waiting forever and it's doing nothing. Like, it's scary. I'm scared by it. I'm scared about how much longer I can be out here doing this with the rate at which the audience shrinks. I'm very nervous. And that GVSI destruction today, this past week, really put into perspective uh, how much this audience has once again shrunk. Scary stuff. You start thinking about, like, am I so passionate for something that um I can actually get ahead at? I don't really know right now. I sure love it though. I do love it. It's a lot to think about. Anyways, this thing on or what? Jeez Louise. Story of my life holding some of these. Yeah. I'll look at these, then we'll do the screener quick. You know, it's tough for me, Red Smile. And the reason it's tough for me is that like in doing OTC method, like part of what I do at OTC method is I'm the guy that, like, if you're trading a lot of markets and you need a guy that you can trust to deliver you the analysis right when it happens, whether it's good or bad, um, then I'm your guy, right? And so my day job, in addition to being trader, is being that guy and picking things apart and always watching what's going on in the OTC, so I can provide um the absolute best level of service to people that are interested in the OTC. And because of that, like if I divert my attention too much, um I miss things. I can't always be on the bleeding edge for people. I can't provide, like, because the chat, right? The chat is locked. People don't just chat. Like, it's just me chatting and explaining exactly what's happening and what I think about it and what the levels are all day long. And so because of that, it's very like if I just decided to turn away and stare at some small caps all day or whatever, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I don't ever want to stop doing that, although sometimes it feels like I might have to. Um, but because of that, I find it tough to do both. So, this is what I do, and it is what it is. Bliss, this is funny. I'm shocked it held up. They just traded it sideways here after this nice bounce out of Dubs, and now, because I figured it would just get flattened, like they would get their little bounce and it would just get flattened, and it hasn't. And so now it's sitting here, and I think once upon a time I would have just picked this up and be like, stay above 16, no problem, I'll take it. I hate it, Tigress, and I'm not very good at it. Like, for the gains that you get on a lot of them, for the amount of time you have to put in, forget it. I'd rather be in couch cushions looking for the dollarinos. You know what I'm saying? It- now options, on the other hand, can really pay, but you got to be really good at it, because to take a loss is pretty much 100%. I know what you're saying, Red Smile. That's like me. That's all I want to do. But then I'm like, where are the big gains at? And it used to be, hey, it'd be really slow for a couple weeks and then boom, a 10 bagger. And then but now the 10 bagger takes 10 months. I would have said just stay above 16 and I'll pick it up, but this could get flattened instantly. Look at borrow money. you know and so I like the idea of Bliss, and it could continue. And if you wanted to face the dragon, stare into the belly of the beast, the balls of the beast, then you could ask it to stay above 16 and you just might get another leg, because it's a good setup for sure. American Rare Earths, boy, this is a big chunky setup. The rare earth thing was something that over the summer, um, I thought was really going to heat up big, and it didn't. But now this thing, God bless, tough trader, but boy, that volume on it, good God. Richard Hudson, Australian, so it's a mega fat ass. Their resource estimate increased. Nice volume today. God bless. The move there. Problem with trading something Australian is if they crush it in Australia, you have no choice. You have no choice but to get crushed in the morning here, which is super frustrating. But next week, if you wanted to, as a best practice, put an anchor on that that there and just challenge it to stay above 14. Maybe you could get 16. Toys R Us. So this isn't Toys R Us in America. This is an Australian company that bought the name Toys R Us for use in Australia for their e-commerce site. Man, that EENF used to just freaking destroy them often. Like, it wasn't just once. So this is Australians that have bought the name Toys R Us to use on their website, which makes it not Toys R Us. I picked it up thinking that, you remember, initially I picked it up thinking that, well, if people are really passionate about Toys R Us, maybe they'll buy this because it says Toys R Us. And then they did. But then people started running around and saying, wait till Toys R Us comes back. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. That's cool. That's cool. Whatever you want to say. But then one day the Australians woke up and just massacred it and never let it breathe ever again. Never once. Not even a second. Brutal. GMER has these Web3 games, Web3 mobile games, which is really painful. And during GameStop, my idea was, would they also buy GMER? That was my idea. And boy, did they. Boy, we crushed that one. These guys have Web3 mobile games. It makes them move the odd, bounce the odd time. Look at them shit on it at the end of the day, though. Good golly. And this is the problem when you're buying something for no reason. You really put yourself into harm's way. Oh boy. This would be a good one if they would cut the nonsense with that. This would be a good one to announce a reverse merger on. That's what they should do here. And if they did, there could be a good move on that. MMJ split coming per their filings. What is this? No clue. What are they doing? Not much. I don't know. What year was that? Good God. I don't know what to do with that. How do I trade this? And then, but these are these ghost ass plays where you're like, oh, what? How can I trade this? Well, what's funny about that is like what shares? Is it the ones that were preloaded like to the tunes of hundreds of millions before they filed for the custodianship? Is it those shares? Or is it new shares that have been printed? Like, which ones are they? Because that's my big question for Frank. Which fucking shares are they? What's the packet? What's the pod? What's the pile? Which ones, Frank?
Heat Zone.
I'm not going to have enough time for screener. Maybe I'll do it on OTCmethod.com where I work every single day for members, not to pump on them, but to provide them with the court vision of what's going on in this market and offer the tools and the information necessary to make your own decisions. Every day, Big Joe Mama, I never, even when I had COVID, I was providing the service. I was having a child, not me. I wasn't having a child. I guess I could though. It's 2024. I could have a child. I'm not saying you couldn't have a child. I'm not saying I couldn't have a child, okay? I don't need that smoke. I don't need that. I'm saying the person I'm married to is having a child, and I provided it. And then, you know what I mean? Because it's so important to me. After I was there that day. So if you would like a person like that in your corner all the damn time while you're trading this market, I'm your guy. That's what I'm saying to you. You want to try me out. You want to try me out. What about the child? I'm talking about OTC method. What child? I don't know any. What, these kids? That's what I'm doing. The child is absolutely more important. But what I'm trying to say to you, Big Joe Mama, is that I am always working for members of OTC Method. I've never broken the trust. I never will. Am I always right? No. Am I often right? Yes. Does it matter if I'm right in the end? Usually not, but I am. And I'm there for the people. Always. Even if I'm in something and something shitty happens, you know, or I bought it, like I'll buy it and go, I don't know if this is good or I effed up. I'm that guy. So hopefully you'll see me there. If not, see you later. Next week, I suppose. I got to do more of these because I have to do like 7 in a month to become an affiliate, but I don't know. You know, this is a lot for not a lot. So we'll see about that. I guess I'm going to go. GE, I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
GE.
And then we'll see you Monday for more heat in the heat zone.
Heat zone.
If you're not part of the heat zone, give it a rip. Cheap bum. You might like it. See you later.